In the last episode, we talked about medieval allegories as they're played out in the play. We're going to see that happen again. And in this case, it's the scene when Hal takes the crown from his father. This brings Henry IV Part 2 into the orbit of Richard II and the deposition scene. Oh, look at the geese are flying over. When Falstaff is deposed by Hal. It starts in the third act, when Henry IV, filled with so much care, remembering that term in Richard II, wanders around the palace in his nightgown in ways that are similar perhaps to the ghost in the first quarto version of Hamlet. O sleep, O gentle sleep, nature's sweet nurse. How have I frighted thee, that thou no more wilt weigh my eyelids down and steep my senses in forgetfulness? O thou dull god, why liest thou with the vile loathsome beds, and leaveth the kingly couch a watch case or a common alarum bell, like a sentry box, in other words? That's another allegorical figure, sleep. Morpheus, as he's called in Chaucer's Book of the Duchess. Now, why can't he sleep? Well, Henry IV is also under the sway of another allegorical figure, sickness. Now, where is he that will not stay so long, talking about Hal, till his friend's sickness's hands determine to me? His sickness and exhaustion can be discerned as well in his own kingdom. It too is sick. When you perceive the body of our kingdom, how foul it is, what rank diseases grow, and with what danger near the heart of it. That's the body politic, an old political concept where the head is the crown, the arms are the laborers or the peasants, if we're thinking about the Middle Ages. He's identifying himself and his sick body with his kingdom. Falstaff also thinks about the body politic, but he sees it as invigorated and how he has been a good influence on Hal. He brings up Richard's natural kingdom in praise of sherries or sack, his wine of choice, his sweet white wine of choice, his fortified wine of choice. Falstaff, in thinking about sherry going through blood, but the sherry warms it. It makes it course from the inwards to the parts extreme to this. So it goes from the into the body all the way to the arms and the legs. It illumineth the face. The face gets lit up, which as a beacon gives warning to all the rest of this little kingdom, man, to arm. And then the vital commoners and inland petty spirits muster me all to their captain, the heart, who great and puffed up with this retinue, this group of men behind him, doth any deed of courage. Remember, he does attack Ancient Pistol. And this valor comes of sherry. So that skill in the weapon, in other words, the ability to fight, is nothing without sack. For that set it a work, and learning a mere hoard of gold kept by a devil till sack commences it and sets it in act and use. Hereof comes it that Prince Harry is valiant. For the cold blood he did naturally inherit of his father. He hath like lean, sterile, and bare land, manured, husbanded, and tilled with excellent endeavor of drinking good and good store of fertile sherry, that he has become very hot and valiant. So notice also we're getting another vision of England. In this case, vibrant and verdant through drink, sterile and hard and bare without. And so, the lack of sleep caused by his sickness finds him in Act 4, dying. And on his deathbed, he asks for the crown. King, set me the crown upon my pillow here. Clarence, his eye is hollow and he changes much. Warwick, less noise, less noise. Enter Harry. Isn't that crazy? You're hearing Richard's original assertion that the crown is hollow. Now, previously he had asked for quiet, and then there's a disruption, and then suddenly Hal appears, and everyone's like, be quiet, be quiet. Is he drunk? Remember, it's hard to be a prodigal son. Hal has obviously slipped. He's back into his antics again. And then he seems to sober up when he sees the crown. Why doth the crown lie there upon his pillow, being so troublesome a bedfellow? O polished perturbation, golden care, that keepest the ports of slumber open wide to many a watchful night. In other words, when you wear the crown, you're always on sentry duty. You can hear Richard's original care. It keeps you awake. How are we to think of his hollow eyes, his sleep with the crown on his pillow and not his head? And what do we make of the sleep that he has found finally? Remember, Morpheus was absent, and now he's present. Without the crown, his father can sleep soundly. He even snores, which he describes as a familiar, homely sound. Not majestic, right? But comforting. Not worrisome like the sentry or the watchman. O majesty, when thou dost pinch thy bearer, thou dost sit like a rich armor worn in heat of day that scaldest with safety. He's describing the crown as uncomfortable to wear. It pinches, and it complements the wearing of armor, okay? Military vigilance, like the night watch. But here, it's not the night watch. It's in the middle of the day, and it's hot. And remember, plate armor can scald when it's burning, and it burns the wearer. And then Hal starts to think of his father in the whole sweep of kingly successions, how each king dies and is divorced from his crown. In other words, he's separated from his burden or care. My gracious Lord, my Father, this sleep is sound indeed. This is a sleep that from this golden wriggle or circle or ring hath divorced so many English kings. Hal knows his father is dying. Does he think he's dead already? It's a very ambiguous moment. So he recognizes mutual responsibilities or dues. As the good son, as the prodigal son, he owes his father reverence and sorrow for his passing. Again, does he think he's dead already? It's like Richard II again. What does his father owe him? The crown. And so Hal demands the crown as his own right. My due from thee is this imperial crown, which, as immediate from thy place and blood, in other words, as next in line in thy place and blood, derives itself or descends to me. Lo, where it sits, which God shall guard. Wait, what's wrong here? The king's not dead yet. Plus, a king doesn't put the crown on his own head. Remember, at the coronation, you have a bishop who puts the crown on the head. This has the taste of other tragedies like Macbeth, when kings are murdered in their sleep so that the usurper can steal the crown. Now, the king is going to wake up. He's going to freak out because not only he's alone, in other words, he's not being attended upon and feeling deserted like Richard II does at the end. Also, his possession is gone. Where's the crown? Well, naturally, like father, like son, Hal has the crown now. And did you notice how Hal just wanders off wearing the crown? At first he feels its weight and its divine status, and then he walks out the door with the crown. And then he starts to sound like Richard II. God will protect his reign. But it also reminds you of Henry IV, his father, misunderstanding the nature of his own usurpation. Dost thou so hunger for mine empty chair that thou wilt needs invest thee with my honors before thy hour be ripe? O foolish youth, Thou seekest the greatness that will overwhelm thee. That's the crown is hollow, an empty position to be filled. And we saw that in Hamlet, and we'll see that also in Macbeth. Naturally, Hal is mortified to be accused of stealing the crown, but his excuse is disturbing about the nature of the crown. Accusing it, I put it on my head to try with it, like kind of wrestle with it, as with an enemy that had before my face murdered my father. The quarrel of a true inheritor. Henry IV again reflects on the crown and how he achieved it. Remember, he's dying. God knows, my son, by what bypaths and indirect crooked ways I met this crown, and I myself know well how troublesome it sat upon my head. He's still Bolingbroke. Somehow it happened. How I came by the crown, oh God forgive, and grant it may with thee in true peace live. Now notice what Hal says. You won it, wore it, kept it, gave it to me. That's the figure of a syndeton, isn't it? Then plain and right must my possession be. Here, Hal is now identifying with his father, just like we saw in Henry IV Part 1 before he fought with Hotspur and Douglas at Shrewsbury. And like Richard in his own realization that the crown kills in his famous Hollow Crown speech, he recognizes that the king is only a player, an actor on the stage. You remember? Within the hollow crown that rounds the mortal temples of a king keeps death his court, and there the antic sits, scoffing his state and grinning at his pomp, allowing him a breath, a little scene to monarchize, in other words, to play act as if he'll be a king forever. He says the same thing. For all my reign hath been but as a scene acting that argument. The argument, that's the plot of his reign. An argument is the plot of a play or a movie. But Hal has the opportunity to change that. In other words, he will be a king by legal succession. He will have a more legitimate reign because his crown will be passed from one king to another. This legitimacy is supposed to mark Henry V's reign. But remember what the argument will be in the next play. He will make claims, dubious claims, on the French crown itself. The next episode, let's look at Henry V's reign in Henry IV Part 2.
Alright guys, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that notification bell.